welcome back. So I'm doing basically a lot of shorter videos at the moment that should hopefully be more focused and interesting, and this is one of them. So I'm here to talk about transmitters, and specifically the PROPO series of transmitters. This one in particular, the MC8, is a small 8-channel unit, and I believe from memory that's channel 1, that's channel 1, that's channel 2, actually it's marked here, yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, and you do get a receiver unit with this, which is 8-channel. You've got your trim buttons here, you've got your power, you've got trigger buttons here. I believe these are 10 position incrementing buttons. And it looks very much like a gamepad. It's actually particularly light and a bit flimsy and plasticky feeling. But I bought this for very, very specific things. One, to have a backup remote unit and have something that was a bit more PlayStation controller-like, which is kind of nice. I'm actually thinking about using this on my HG802 and using this for controlling the train. So I'll have my normal transmitter for driving, and then I'll park and then use this for actually driving and picking up, for actually picking things up. Or I might even use this for purely just for every feature on there. So this for driving and steering, and then this for controlling the crane or something like that. Very, very similar to the original unit that came with the HG802. Now, this is actually a bit of a departure from my Let's Make Everything in MB4 initiative, which I went for. And I tried to go down to basically only having the one transmitter. There was just one caveat to that, and I'll get into why that is at the moment. But once you basically go over one transmitter, you may get two. So this is more of a backup unit, or very, very application specific. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do with this, but this wasn't the cheapest transmitter out there, but it also wasn't particularly bad for my taste. So it was a nice to have. That's probably going to be used for one or two very, very specific projects. And to be honest, that's all I need it for. So, cool, let's put that aside and let's get on to the main event. But before we can get on to the main event, I need to pull out something very, very special. So that is a dNano. These are getting exceedingly rare these days, and I've been keeping an eye on eBay for probably about a year or two now, and one or two really, really particularly cheap ones have come up, and I've picked them up in both occasions. So just turn that on. Now the problem I have with this is it's ASF, and there's no real newer one or way to upgrade to a newer transmitter. And so the KT19, which do I have? Yes. The KT19 is not a bad transmitter. So this is KT18, sorry. The KT19 is the blue one. This is actually more capable than the blue one in many ways. It's got the trims for throttle and steering there, and there's a whole lot of alternate functions hidden away behind these if you actually go off and read the manual. So this is actually more capable than you would think if you've only ever used the KT19. And it's not a bad unit. I don't quite like how light that is. And it feels, in my mind, a bit flimsy. The spring here is very, how do I put it, a bit stiff, but also a bit weak in places, and then you just immediately hit hard plastic. I haven't been a big fan, but apart from that, the control and control of it isn't too bad, and I'm not a big fan of how the brake on that. But I don't care about this, so let's put this one away for the moment. What I do care about, and I just realised I've got the wrong attachment on this, is the EX-6. So this is an ASF transmitter designed for Kyosho Mini Zs. This also speaks MHS if you've got one of the Evos. Now, one of the more interesting things here is I've got the stick control on it. And I've just been playing around with this as it seemed like an interesting option. I'm still a bit torn on whether or not I like this, but I think the only reason I don't like this is actually because you can't twist and turn it into where I want it to be. I actually want to twist it more than that and have it more flat, and I can't bend it back nearly as far enough as I like. So it's been kind of interesting. I think I just have to get used to it. It does have a trigger button up the top here, which is pretty awesome. And you do have 3 position switches here, as opposed to dials or something. But we're not going to review that part for the moment, so let's just pop that off, if I can remember how. Popping it off is pretty easy. You just pull a lever down here and push a button up the top here, and that just slides out, and it's got a universal connector there. And we'll just swap it back over to what it originally came with, and to make it more interesting, that's what it looks like on the other side. Put this all back in, push it in, slide it down, close the lever back in, and bam, we've now got the original setup as it comes. So let's talk about this. That isn't too bad. I haven't tweaked anything. The left and right isn't too bad. I'd probably make it a bit stiffer, but that's all personal preference. I personally don't find it has enough of a throw left or right, which is probably fine for most things, to be honest. If you're drifting, you don't want too much angle, and if you've got like a touring car, you probably don't either. But I wouldn't mind, what is it? I want to say that's about 30, 35 degrees. I probably want it to actually come, I want about another 10 or 15 degrees on that. But, that's fine. Pretty simple to operate. Charging port here. I've actually got 2 AAA lipos in here in 2 spaces, and this actually supports that out of the box, which is really, really awesome. On switches there. In fact, I'll do the boot up again. Oops, just had the car move. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Boots up relatively quickly. One of the things that's been the most impressive about this is the LCD response is instant. You push the button and the screen updates near instantly, which is not what I was expecting for something that's LCD based. But let's go into the function, and here is what's interesting in that you can actually change the battery type this is actually using. So you've got lithium ferrite, high NiMis, and lipos. So I just have it on lipos, and then if we exit back out, you can see in the top hand corner it's giving you the voltage for that, which is kind of nice. 7.3, these probably do need a charge. You can also see I've put the setup for a dNano, and it's also indicating it's in ASF mode. If you want to change it to a different mode from memory, turn it off, hold that button that way. And then this blue light blinks, and then if you have a look at that, it now says, if you can focus, MHS, which is kind of cool. So I'll flick that back because that doesn't work with the Mini Z. I don't know if you can set that on a per model basis. I suspect you can't. I suspect it's all or nothing, but ASF. So that's it. So I'll just show you what actually works. Huh, interesting. Did I turn the car off? Okay, when I change the protocol, I have to turn it on and off again. Alright, not really enough for space, but you get the idea. This thing's been an absolute hoot. And the gyro on and everything. So just quickly turn that off. Now, as I said, like I wanted a better controller for the dNanos, but I also like the possibility of potentially getting the MHS for this in a slightly lower latency. I don't kind of need the latency, but I thought it'd be interesting to have another controller. I have found this handle to be a lot thinner than I'd actually like, and I know these are replaceable, so I might see if there's a wider one. One of the more interesting things is that there's actually a ball cup here, so you can actually move the finger grip not only back and forward and to quite an extreme angle, which I really, really like because I prefer it very, very tight, but you can actually move it side to side, which is kind of good. Like that is actually an interesting way to do it, or like that. And I prefer to have it like that because it just grips my finger a bit better. I actually have a lot of trouble with enabling brake or going from forward to braking. and having the proper setup on the trigger really helps. I've got the same issue with the NB4. So you've got your lanyard post, that pops out the LCD screen, so the LCD screen can actually be rotated 45 degrees and pointing that way rather than towards the camera. This actually changes the actual physical position of that. So if I pull that, in terms of configurability, so you saw that actually moved back. Now that was a very interesting option, and the configurability for ergonomics is actually kind of crazy on this transmitter. As I said, my only real complaint is that this bit here is just too small. It's not bad. I just would have preferred a bit more bulk. My hand's sort of floating in there, and I would have right in there, and I would have preferred a bit more bulk to grip to. The buttons all around are not bad. They're all 3 positions. You can bind them to a whole lot of stuff. You've got your dial here. You've got your up down there, which is nice and easy to reach. And then you've got like a single button on the bottom there. So that's been good. The setup and configuration via the menus has actually been a lot simpler than I thought it would, and especially being so responsive in terms of audio and visual feedback, it's been really good. Whoever designed this really put a lot of thought into it. So binding channels, for example, is very simple. You can also change like endpoints on a channel 3 and channel 4. Not quite as nice as the NB4 setup, but not far off it in all honesty. And you can set it up as like 1, 3, 4, 4-way switch, analog, a whole bunch of stuff. And then I remember, yep, key set. And key set allows you to bind to a whole lot of functions. So this actually has some really interesting features. One of the interesting ones I found was if I go back. So there we go, and then go. That's that one. I've probably unbound it, to be honest. Key set. I need to be binding ET1. Oh, okay, I bound ET1 to handbrake, which is something I'd cheat and do on with the NB4, where you just push one button, you get a handbrake, and I normally use the side ones for quick handbrake. But this has actually got that built in. I don't have to play with mixing at all. Oh, maybe it was OS2. Alright. So if we have a look at this, if I do, see it says AUT, and now I'm just going to pull the throttle very slightly, if I can find it. Oh, maybe not. Basically, it gives that feature, basically when I pull the throttle to 100%, it engages to 100% immediately and digitally. It doesn't ramp up slowly like you would from your physical finger, so you get off the line a lot quicker. It also allows you to spin out a lot quicker, depending if you've got your setup right or not. Apart from that, there's not really a lot more to do with it. The dynamics give you the curve dynamics of your throttle and your steering. Feel was an interesting one. So on the MiniZ Reddit, we actually had a question about this a couple of months ago, and I got one. Actually got my hands on one of these, and worked out what it does. It's a bit of a steering and throttle mixing, so that if you're steering a lot, it may back off on the throttle or may increase on the throttle. And the other option does the exact inverse. If you're throttling, it may decrease the steering. So you may want it that if you're at full throttle, you decrease the steering, so that you've got most of your sensitivity is for moving the wheels only a slight amount, and that'll allow you it gives you more control on the straights to be able to stay straight. Whereas, and then when you release off the throttle and that mix suddenly goes away, suddenly you get all that potential steering angle back into the wheels and able to take the turn a bit better. I actually found it was really good. I bumped up the steering feel to like, I think 30% or whatever, and then I'd hammer the accelerator and this thing would like literally turn on the spot. It was absolutely incredible. Really mind-blowing. I'd been trying to do that with the NB4 and hadn't quite been able to work out how to do that. basically because the mixing on the NB4 only allows you to change a single channel, whereas the mixing on this allows you to affect things like endpoint adjustment. So you can actually have a button that allows you to change endpoint adjustment on the fly, which is really, really, really nice. So I can understand now why at the top level people run these rather than the NB4s. There's some of those features like that will give you a definite competitive edge. Being able to change endpoint adjustment on the fly doesn't seem like a big thing, but as I said, if you tie it dynamically to throttle, it will allow you to stay straighter on the straights and give you more control on the straights, but still take the turns at, get the maximum authority to be able to take those turns really, really nicely. So, yeah, basically this is a very, very expensive upgrade for my dNanos, and I will likely go back to the MHS boards for some of my Evos and use this on the more in the stock class, and then leave the NB4 for my other models. If you would believe it, I'm actually running out of models on my NB4, so it does make sense to move some of this to the EX-6. So super happy with that, and I'm just realizing how loose that is. I might have to tighten that up with the screwdriver. Do I have one handy? I had one handy. Let's see if I can cheat. So I really shouldn't be doing this on screen, but you know, yeah, that's just come loose. That's a bit better. I'll fix it up later. So yeah, if you have any questions about this, let me know. It's really hard to go into all the details. The worst part about the EX-6 is the manual is pathetic. And having a look at the descriptions in Japanese, I don't think the Japanese is any better. So it'll say things like, what is the MS feel? What is the feel option? The feel option allows you to adjust the feel of the vehicle, and that doesn't explain anything. So there's been a lot of experimentation with this for me to get it where I want it to be, but I'm generally pretty happy with it. Yeah, don't know if I'd recommend it, but if you're thinking between thinking about an MB4 or going more into the club scene, you could definitely make a case for going to the EX-6 rather than the NB4. The NB4 is great for the hobbyist. The EX-6 is definitely more professional. So if you want to start edging out your competition, you probably want to head to the EX-6. Now the other interesting thing here that I should probably touch on is, I've got to remember where the button for this one is. It's on the front from memory. Where's that one? Oh, maybe I won't be able to find it. But basically, the EX-6 is the same as the other PROPO things, except it's got a different radio. This lever allows you to detach this entire radio unit, and just leaves you with the base receiver here. And you can also detach this stand as well. I've actually got an extension here so it doesn't fall over to the side. But they're all interchangeable. So if you want to use just the PROPO ASF stuff, you can just swap out this unit, but keep that, the LCD screen, and that's a much cheaper upgrade than buying a completely new transmitter. So that may be for some people, maybe not. It's a nice and interesting feature. I just don't know how useful it's going to be in practice. So that's a very, very simple review of this. If you want to know more, definitely ask me questions. I can definitely investigate things. Or post it on the MiniZ Reddit. I watch that daily and answer questions all the time. But I also watch my comments, so up to you how you want to reply. So, yeah, I guess I'll see you all later, and that later probably means in about 5 minutes when I record the last video for tonight. So thanks for joining me, and I will see you momentarily. Wow, 20 minutes.